Now this illustration deals with single motor taps. For example, in the illustration 18-31 that we're reviewing right now, notice we have a feeder that's routed over to an auxiliary gutter, and then we're having individual taps here from the feeder to each one of these motors. Now, don't get confused when you apply the tap rule. If you're, say, on the supply side, as you see the breaker here, which says service conductors, then that's 230.82 on page 95 of the code. That's where you'd pick up the taps there, and of course they're all listed there. But notice service breakers and taps and switches, they're not going to be listed there because that's in Article 230, so that you'd pick that up. So don't get mixed up on that. Then notice we could run this feeder that you see here on out and tap again by 240.21b as in boy, and that's about around page 101 of your code book. And then we could say have a main set right below this overcurrent device here, which says 430.62a and 430.63, and run a feeder over to a transformer, and then tap off of the secondary side of that transformer with transformer secondary conductors in compliance with 240.21c and E. And, you know, that's on page 101, 102, and 107 of your code book that you can pick up those rules. 10-foot tap, over 10 to 25, over 25 to 100, and then over 100 foot to any length as long as you meet 240.92e, which is around probably page, I'm saying page 107, 108, somewhere in there. Now, if you want to get an overall tap rule, where all your taps are listed, then reference 240.4e is in ed, and you'll find that around page 99 of your code book, somewhere in there. Now, if I miss a page, I'm going to get you in the neighborhood so that you can find it pretty quick. Just remember those page numbers and review any section of a tap that you may be making. But notice it's very important that you use 430.28 right here. You see where it says 10 or 25 foot tap right there? That's important that you use that particular tap rule, and go to about page 314 or 315 in the NEC, and you can get those rules. Now, the only way you can be over a 25-foot tap, for example, from that auxiliary gutter down, is to have a high bay area. Then you could have up to a 100-foot type tap for a motor. But you have to have a high bay area to do that, as outlined in the exception to 430.28. So 430.28 now is much different than these other tap rules, because these 430.28 deals with taps to motors. Like, you know, you could tap to this motor to the right and tap to that disconnect. And remember, fuses hold 5 times their ratings to allow motors to start and run. And you can even have overload protection to protect the motor if it's a motor you just can't afford to lose. Or you could back up the overloads by just rounding up the next size above 125% of the nameplate of the motor, as we're required and allowed to do in 430.6A2 of the code, around page 308, somewhere in that neighborhood of the code book. So this is this figure 18-31 just deals with single motor taps in accordance with 430.53 D as in dog 1 through D4 of the NEC.